Hi, everyone. I am Kay Berkner here today with Dr. Tom Phelan, creator and author of 123 Magic, as well as the Manager Mom Epidemic. Dr. Phelan, welcome.
Good morning, Kay.
How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good, surviving the you-know-what pretty well, hanging in there.
Indeed. And now it's getting cold.
It's like winter out there today.
All right. I'm not going to lie. I have had my Christmas tree up all year, literally all year. It doesn't have ornaments on it right now, but it does have the lights.
Here's what we do for that.
You're one of those people. I see how this is. I just feel like there are very few things that cannot be made happier by some twinkly lights. That's all I'm saying. But today, to get back on topic, today we are going to be talking about destructive parenting myths. Dr. Phelan, can you tell us, how can a myth be destructive in the first place? Like, how can it cause trouble for us?
Yeah, well, myths are really kind of a combination of hope and perception of a cost-benefit ratio. And the good thing about human beings is we are hopeful people in general. We're always looking forward to something. But what that means a lot of times is we create a myth that has no negatives to it. So we look at the cost-benefit ratio, say, of having kids and parenting and all that as, almost 100% positive experience. And it's not till later we realize some of the negative things. But it's the come down that's dangerous, because when our experience doesn't match the myth, then we think something is wrong when nothing's wrong. But then we think something may be wrong with me, something may be wrong with my spouse or partner, or something may be wrong with my kid. And it's those emotional reactions which can cause the trouble.
Got it. So what is a myth that parents commonly believe that might affect how they see their children?
Yeah, although a lot of parents may deny this, one of the most common myths is what we call first-time obedience. And that is when you ask a kid to do something or transition or something like that, and you explain in a nice, calm way, they will respond the first time with cooperation. And anybody who's been a parent for very long knows that's not true. In fact, sometimes you get the opposite. You get positive resistance rather than that. But it's something that we think should happen.
Right, because we're very reasonable people. We're asking very nicely. Maybe we've explained to you why it's important. Why wouldn't you do that? It doesn't make any sense.
Exactly right. You've got the spirit of it, that's for sure.
Absolutely. So you have talked before, and you alluded to this a little bit earlier, about the romantic view of parenting versus the realistic view of parenting. Can you sort of elaborate on the difference between those two things?
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. The romantic includes all the nice, cozy, fuzzy, warm, fuzzy, positive things. And the realistic includes some of the hard work. Somebody said once that having kids is like a high reward, high cost activity. And it really is. There's a lot of reward there, but you pay dearly for it. And we're not aware of that before it actually happens. And the other thing about our society is we are real saps when it comes to in the media descriptions of, so-and-so, a movie actress is going to have twins and she's so excited and all that. I want to send her a sympathy card. I mean, this is something that is going to be hard work and it's going to be tough. Now, maybe she's an actress. She has 9 nannies that can help her out with the thing. But we push it. But that, again, sets people up to feel bad, because then when they think, why is this so hard? Everybody else is having a good time with it. Well, everybody else is not having such a good time with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, especially for first-time parents, that is a startling realization that one has. It's very much a big wake-up call when you kind of think of how I imagine this to be versus what it actually is. And also, I think that's one of sort of the downsides of only looking at social media to see what other people's parenting experiences are, because, of course, like, Beyonce has a fabulous photo shoot with her babies and like props and costumes, and she looks amazing. And she also possibly has additional help with childcare around the clock, a personal trainer, a chef, so we can see the things that other people put up on social media, and not even just celebrities, right? Just other people generally. But social media is not the truth, right? It's the best of our lives. It's what we want people to think our lives
Yeah,
are.
it's the positive again. So people think that, well, that's the only part of your life is this positive experience, and they don't see the really hard parts. But you see all your hard parts, and you don't miss any of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, speaking of hard parts, talk to us about a myth that maybe impacts how parents see each other.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest, if not the biggest, is the myth that we're going to share equally in the parenting experience. And you know which way this goes. It usually dad will think about it, kind of assume it. Meanwhile, mom will do more of the work. And the research clearly shows that once baby comes, the amount of work around the house explodes in terms of cooking, laundry, cleaning, and all that kind of thing. And it is not equally distributed. There are also problems with the first month. Some people think that fathers shouldn't, feed, even if you're doing a breast pump or something like that. That fathers shouldn't, or can't feed the baby in the first month. But there's other research that shows that whoever gets stuck doing a particular job in the beginning gets stuck with it forever. So if you're the one getting up in the middle of the night and feeding the baby, there's a strong tendency for you to continue getting up in the night and feeding the baby.
Indeed, there is diapers. There's another
Right?
one right there.
Yeah.
If
I mean, dad's not going to drop the kid. He can change a diaper in the afternoon or in the middle of the night, and he can feed the baby in the middle of the night. But everybody kind of cooperates to keep the men down, including the men.
Well, sure. I mean, to be fair, I don't want to change diapers either. But it's funny though, because when I had my first child, who she actually turned 6 yesterday, happy birthday, Josie. When I had my first child, my husband actually already had older kids. He had way more experience with babies than I had. So I think that that's a perfect example of like dad is perfectly competent, and dad, in some cases, is going to be better at it than mom is, if he's done it before, or if he was someone who did a lot of babysitting or took care of younger siblings or something like that. So I definitely think maybe one of the things that you said was it's assumed, right? Like people don't always have the conversation around how it's going to work because of this myth that we're going to share it together. But if you don't actually sit down and say, okay, so we're going to have a baby, and the baby is going to wake up several times a night, and they're going to need a new diaper, and they're going to need to eat, and how are we going to handle that? Then it just sort of defaults to whoever is woken up first, or whoever is feeding the baby more often.
Well, that's
Absolutely.
a big part of it, and default is the word for it, because you're absolutely right. We don't sit down and talk about it, and it really would be helpful. In your case, it's interesting because you got somebody who, at that moment of the birth of your kids, has more experience than you do with that, and nice thing would be a nice thing to talk about and make some agreements about who's going to do what.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and thank goodness for that, because all of the things that like you panic about as a first time parent, like, oh my gosh, their temperature has risen half a degree. What do we do? Is that supposed to be that color? Should we call the doctor? Had a lot of in-house reassurances that no, it's all perfectly normal and you're fine. But
They'll grow like weeds.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, we've spent a lot of this conversation talking about some of the challenges that parenting myths can cause. Is there a positive side of this?
Yeah, well, there is. And the positive side is the experience itself. When I said before, it's a high cost, high reward activity. It's a high reward activity. So you get just amazing rewards. I mean, kids are adorable. A lot of the time, they're so cute and they're so much fun and all that. That is real, and that's there. You pay dearly for it, but it doesn't go away. It's still there. And interestingly enough, as difficult as it is raising kids, I think it's something like 95% of parents, or less than 5%, say they wouldn't want to do it again. So even though it's so difficult, almost all the parents who do it say I'd go do it again if I had to. So that's the positive side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, kids are super hard. They're a lot of work. And they're also really fun, and they're really, really cute. They're really cute. And that's why we take videos of them being cute. So then when we're really mad at them, we can replay the videos and remind ourselves that they're very cute.
Yeah, you want to freeze the cuteness and store it for further review at sometime later.
Absolutely. The cuteness and like the embarrassing stuff. So you can like clip together a video and play it at their wedding, or for their future spouse. My parents played some home videos for he was not my husband yet, but we were dating at the time. They played some home videos of me when I was like maybe 8, 9, and I'm never going to live those down now. So
Sweet revenge.
yes, absolutely. So we've talked a little bit about what some of the myths are and sort of how they can impact mom and dad. Do the myths, are they different for men and women, or do kind of men and women have the same sorts of beliefs around these myths?
I think they're sort of the same, but I think they're more intense for the moms and for the women. There's a book called Warriors and Worriers by Joyce Benenson, and she talks about frequently, intensely, and so on, that women, when they approach the job of parenting and so on, they're just more intense about it, and they do it more frequently, they do it more freely than the guys do. And so I think the myths that they think about beforehand are going to be held more intensely. And that means that there's a danger when I talk about the come down before. It's like, oh, gee, it's not working out the way I thought it would be. I think the moms are going to get whacked more than the dads. Not that the dads won't get whacked at all by it, but I think the moms will feel it more keenly.
Got it. So, where do these myths come from, right? Like in this day and age, we have access to the internet. We can basically find any information that we're looking for anytime we want. If you're a new parent, please do not be Googling things at 2 a.m. It's not a good idea. I can tell you from personal experience, you'll also end up doing a lot of online shopping. Don't do that either. But why aren't we as parents or as expectant parents better grounded or better informed around these myths?
I think it's it's a combination of hope that we talked about before and inexperience. So I think if you put hope and inexperience together, you get a whole lot of myths, not just around parenting. Parenting isn't the only place we have myths. We have myths about our first job. We have myths about marriage. We have myths about life itself. And I think one of the myths that we cherish when we're growing up, a lot of us, is that someday, if everything works out, there'll come a day where I am totally, permanently happy. And I'm just going along, and when I make this much money, I'll be totally permanently happy. If I find this right person, I'll be totally permanently happy. It's just the way people are. It's hope and inexperience. So after a period of time, and after we get a little bit older and more experienced, we realize that we're never going to be totally happy, but we are less whacked by the discrepancy and the cost-benefit ratio that we experience in our lives. And we settle for it. We realize it's a good thing. It's worth it. I have to work hard. I do have some pain, but I get a whole lot of reward for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do wonder how much of the sort of inexperienced part shows up in just not knowing the right questions to ask, right? Like you can Google anything, but you have to know what to Google.
Well, right. And, when you said that before, I was thinking, well, who's going to go looking for the negative stuff? What would your search words be? Negative aspects of parenting. You probably could find it or find some of this stuff. But, the other thing is you won't believe it, because even if you found it and you saw it, you'd think that isn't going to happen to me. I've given parenting seminars to camp counselors who are teenagers who have not been parents. And they don't relate to the stuff. They don't think any of the jokes are funny. They can hardly understand what I'm talking about. Whereas if you give it to parents, it's a totally different experience. And so it's like, you have to have walked the walk. You have to have been there, and then you will get the idea.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Phelan, for joining us today. I think that this was really useful. And even though a lot of the conversation felt a little heavy in talking about like, oh, you might believe this, but it's not going to be. I think it's also hopeful in that, you had a belief, it's going to change. You're going to get through it.
Yeah. Thanks, Kay.
Fantastic. If you know someone who needs to hear this, please share this video or tag them in the comments below. And if you haven't yet, please head on over to 123magic.com to sign up for our weekly newsletter. This week, we'll be sharing more information about these 8 myths and how you can learn more about them. And we always share weekly parenting tips, videos, and more. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.